Good morning, everyone. Welcome to 1 Million Cups, Hopkins County version. We got some visitors from out of town, and more than a few people from local, and we're excited. As you all know, 1 Million Cups is an entrepreneurial education program that was founded roughly 3 years ago by the Kaufman Foundation out of Kansas City, Missouri. And its focus is to bring together entrepreneurs, startups, and entrepreneurial companies that may have been in existence for many, many years to share. It's not a pitch situation, it's to make yourself slightly vulnerable, to say, here are my challenges, the goals, the mistakes made, the successes, and the goals for the future. And so with that, I'm very privileged to introduce a friend that Maria and I have been very privileged to know for, I was counting up this morning, about 22 years. Maria made me say that, of course, she had just barely gotten out of high school at that point, but we lived in Paducah before moving to Madisonville and got to know Billy at that point. And it's been a privilege over the years. Billy's extremely involved in the community and has been a leader statewide. I'm going to let him tell you more about that as well as his entrepreneurial business journey. With that, Mr. Harper, it's yours.
The only reason I've got notes is because if I don't, I'll ramble everywhere. And so I'm going to try to do the 15, 20 minutes of who I am and sort of where I've been, and then hopefully we can just dialogue from there on. And if you see something really you want to know now, raise your hand, we'll talk about it. I like being informal. So anyway, I'm Billy Harper, born and raised in Paducah, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my education history because it will have an impact on where I ended up through life. But went to Heath High School. Some of you know Paducah and know the county system. I think we had 62 people in my senior class, and we probably lost 30 by that time. As you know, we lose about a third or a fourth of kids to drop out. Anyway, all my whole life, and I don't know why, I knew I wanted to be an engineer. And so testing wasn't a big deal if you just went to UK and you started as an engineer. I was not ready for UK, I can tell you that. And everybody talks about great college years. They were 4 years from hell as far as I'm concerned. But I got out at 8 semesters with a passing grade, so I made it. But college was a huge challenge for me, particularly staying in engineering. I never evaluated any other options. I'm going to do that. And I did. And I'm glad I did. But I realized I was not prepared. So that had an impact on my thoughts about education. And you will see that as we talk through the rest. Never went on. I always thought I would wish I had gone to accounting school and law school. Not that I ever want to practice neither one, but in business, you need so much of both. And it's expensive to get good help or good advice, but anyway, that never happened either. A little bit about my history. I grew up loving cars. You'll see that more, and I thought about that later, what we could have put up on the screen, but we'll talk about it. But I always loved cars, and I loved farm equipment. I grew up on a farm. We also had a dairy farm, but I thought the equipment was a lot more fun than milking cows, but you do what you have to do. My whole thought was, I will mechanical engineering, we'll go through the automotive wing of that and go to work for Chrysler. That was sort of my focus. Got out, interviewed Chrysler, walked in, and you got to remember now, this is in the 60s, so computers were just barely coming on the scene, and they walked into a room and about 300 engineers or more, looked like 500, all at drafting boards, and said, this is where you start. I said, wait a minute, this is a farm boy, and I'm going to sit down a drafting board. And I said, what about the test track or engine or somewhere else? He said, everybody has to start in the drafting. Well, I knew that I wasn't meant to be an engineer inside looking at a drawing. So I ended up at Shell Oil, and for several years in the oil field, which was a totally field I knew nothing about, but it was a great experience. One is, you run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I had grown up sort of in the union environment. Dad had a construction company, it was 8 to 5. And you never tried to work overtime because it was double time and all that. On the oil field, it was a whole different work. So I loved it, it was good. In the middle of that was Vietnam War. And I was on professional deferment, but I had a real problem with me sitting here, nice cushy job, nice paycheck. All my friends are going to Vietnam and getting shot up, coming back or not at all. And so I talked with Shell about it, and I said, I'd really like to apply for military because I just don't feel right in my heart. And they said, you've got to do what's right for you. So I applied for the U.S. Public Health Service and was accepted as a commissioned officer. And in that, National Institutes of Health in Washington, D.C. was a huge expansion program at that time. And the reason was they had several Nobel Peace Prize winners. You can only pay a government worker so much, so they paid them the facilities. And the program was way behind schedule, way over budget, and they assigned 5 of us commissioned officers to manage that project. And it was, I don't remember the numbers now, it was around $100 million in the 60s, which would have been a $1 billion project today. We had a ball, and we all worked together, we worked long hours, we got the projects back on track. That was my military. I never even put on a uniform the whole 2 years I was there. And the nice thing was, Shell kept sending me a check, the difference between my military check and my Shell check for 2 years. So hadn't made really compared to what most kids went through at that period of time. But all of a sudden, I grew up in a construction family, cared nothing about it, and then from a management, I had seen the end of a shovel or maybe drive a truck, but I really didn't see the management side of construction until in the military. And I realized then I do enjoy construction. I enjoy management. Went back to Shell, spent a few years. And then in 1970, 71, right in that period of time, my father called me and he said, we have a chance to build a huge hospital addition in a joint venture with another contractor in Paducah. If you ever want to come back, this is your chance. Now, Dad, a $300,000 a year was a big year for him. So he was a small contractor, enjoyed building churches, or really architectural. He didn't want any part, or didn't really know how to manage or want to manage that big a project. It was about an $8 million project. And so our firm, joint venture with Ray Black and Son, both of those firms you may have heard of in Paducah. And we built an addition to Western Baptist Hospital. And so that was the beginning of my entrance back into the construction of the local community. I can't say I had that burning desire to be a business person, to be an entrepreneur. Although people have reminded me, particularly my mom, that when I was in grade school, I used to see at the drugstore these big bags of marbles, and I would buy that in little plastic bags and bag them up into small ones and sell them for about 100% markup. So I think I really started earlier than I had planned on, but you know, when you don't have an allowance, you figured out how to make money somewhere. So I say that to say you got to figure out where your niche is. You got to be happy. And you'll hear that through my whole thing. If you're going into something and you're miserable, don't do it, because you will never get happy. You've got to be a happy person. You're going to have stumbling blocks. You're going to have challenges. You're going to have problems. But you've got to have core happiness. If you don't have that, you don't have anything, as far as I'm concerned. But you've also got to enjoy the business you're in. You've got to enjoy the industry you're in. And the last 5 years, and I'll talk a little more about that, I began to wonder if I really enjoyed it very much or not, because it has been bad news for us. This is the first year we've seen black ink in 6 years. So finally it's turned and we're coming out. And there's lots of reasons for that, but that's just the way life is. So you got to know yourself, you got to know your industry, but you've got to be happy. You've also got to find support people around. I was very fortunate in early 70s, and I'm not going to talk a lot about our company, but we kept we started acquiring companies and started companies in the 70s and just continued to grow and grew out of Paducah area to Nashville, Texas, and all of them are pretty interesting stories how we got there. But we had an accountant. When I came to business, again, I didn't know much about accounting, but I learned real quick, there's black, there's white, and there's gray, particularly in the tax area. I didn't want to be in the black. I didn't want to be paying extra taxes I didn't have. Well, the accountant Dad had was a wonderful guy, very smart, but he said, we don't go in the gray area. And I said, I don't think you're the right accountant for us. So I started interviewing around Paducah, and I met a gentleman, and I'll say his name because he's totally retired, Carney Allen, that became a dear friend, and he will tell you to this day, he's lost more sleep over our business than I have, and that's a true statement. But he was always there, the pros and cons. Now, I wouldn't do this, but knowing you, you probably will do this, but here's your ups and downs. But he was a great advisor. He stayed with me until he's retired. His firm stayed with us for many years after that. But he's still a friend. He's still living, and we still go to lunch pretty often. His mind's sharp. He said, I won't do a pro forma for you, but I'll talk philosophy all day, and he's great. Another gentleman I had was a banker. And again, I miss these days today. That my father lost interest in the business when it got beyond the $300,000. He was not about borrowing money. He was not about building big jobs, this sort of thing. And there was a banker at the old People's Bank in Paducah named Royce Gregory. And he became like a father to me. And during growth periods, and there are always ups and downs in any business, particularly construction, he was a great advisor, even some things maybe not to the benefit of the bank. But I literally went to him one day. We had 2 projects that went south, and I didn't know it at the time until they hit. And so I went to sit down with Royce and I said, Royce, I need $1 million for my payroll to work through this. I don't know how we'll secure it or how we'll pay for it. And in 2 days, I had a check. You would not do that in banks today, I can promise you. But came with that a lot of advice, a lot of support, and I just went, there was a whole group of board members at that bank, and I've been to the funeral of one recent because those guys were just there when you need them. And that's something entrepreneurs today don't have. And so get a support network. YPO, if you've ever heard of it or been around it, is a great organization, Young Presidents Organization. It's gone through a lot of changes itself. It used to at 50, they kicked you out and went to World Presidents Organization. My kids said it ought to be Old President, OPO, Old Presidents Organization. But that one was a great teaching, not only in business, but about raising families, relationships, all those kind of things. So anyway, look outside your comfort zone. Look at where people can help you, you've been through it, whatever. Maybe that's why I'm here today. Maybe I can help. I've been through some of them. You got to find your passions in life. And I'm rushing through so we can chat. You got to know what makes you happy. You got to know where you can contribute and where your needs are. 2 things happened to me, and we can talk about the Chamber of Commerce in Paducah a little bit. But one is my experience growing up through schools. The second is I looked around the 70s and said, you know, if we don't have an educated workforce in our community, we're dead. And that's proven to be true. So one of the passions that I have developed is education. And it's an education for all kids. We cannot afford to have a dropout. We cannot afford to lose any single kid. Now, we've got to bring everybody up, but those that are best and brightest, we've got to give them everything we can do to get them to their level, whether they become the entrepreneurs, the governors, the presidents, whatever they're going to do. But we've got to bring the whole level up. I've been saying that for 40 years. Have we improved any? Hopefully some, not near fast enough. The other passion I have is automotive and racing. I tell people I just never grew up. So I started driving at Sturgis. Some of you may remember there was a drag strip in Sturgis years ago, the old airfield. Road nights out of Evansville ran it. I was hooked. First time I went down the track. 55 years later, I'm still driving a race car. and I'll be leaving early in the morning to go to Michigan. I drive a pro modified car that goes from 0 to 240 miles an hour in 6 seconds.
Wow.
So, and I do have some pictures. We can talk racing all you want. But it's a passion. I love it. The one thing about it, when I'm in a race car, I don't have time to think about business or anything else. So you get focused and you get your mind off of business. You may have to go 200 miles an hour to do it, but that's okay, and I love it. You've also, you know, your family, your passion, you can't ignore those. And it's very, very difficult to grow up or develop a business or have a passion for starting a business and try to raise a family. Because how do you balance the time with your kids, and where you need to be, and where business you need to be? And those aren't easy answers. So what you have to do is prioritize the time. And it may be, you know, you come home in the afternoon when the kids come home from school, or you go to that play, or graduation, or whatever it may be, then you go back to work when they go to bed. There may be some things that you have to do that are not fun or not easy through those years. I can't stay awake now like I used to. I used to never sleep, but I can't do that anymore. So, but anyway, you got to give your family priority, because if you don't, they're going to grow up, go away, and you won't have it. And you'll never develop a relationship if you don't own your kids. So I would say that forever, put time into your family, invest in them. And a cousin, spouse to die this weekend. All of a sudden I realized he's 89 years old, but we still work together. You know, it's just, time gets away from it. Don't ever look back and say, I wish I'd have done whatever. Yeah, you may have to work on the timing, you may have to modify it some way, but, and it's, there's nothing wrong with having too many dreams, I guess, but you also got to know what you can do. But I have seen so many people in their 60s or 70s or 80s, whenever they retire, say, boy, I wish I'd have done this, or I wish I'd have gone there, I wish I'd have tried this and this. Don't say that. Go do it. Try it. Stick your finger in it. Maybe you don't want to totally dive in, but you want to try. But don't ever look back. What I will share with you, if you want to talk about what we have. In 2008, we were riding high. We had gone gratefully $250 million company and growing like crazy. So we woke up one morning, the economy, bottom was falling out. We could not shut down fast enough. We terminated over 1,000 people. We've sold businesses. We did everything to survive. And it's been a nightmare. And until this year, again, we've turned. But used to, and ups and downs of the economy, and winning and losing jobs, you didn't worry about your employees because they go down the street and go to work for your competitor, but at least they're okay. When we were terminating people, they didn't have anywhere to go. And that really bothered me. It's been very, very tough. And I've never seen anything like a 5-year depression like we've had. So that's been a real eye for us. We're going to end up this year around 75 million or so, and now level off and start back up. So we've sold companies, we've done a lot of different things. We're still doing some startups at this point. So you don't have to quit, but I thought there was I guess a couple of points in there I weren't sure we were going to survive. I mean, it was that bad. And one thing I learned is if you don't have your faith in whatever it is, and I'm not a minister, but you've got to have an eternal faith in some higher being or power or support. And there's a minister, and Mary and I laugh about this. We heard a sermon once, and he said, you know, at some point, you've got to just put it in God's hands or whatever you believe in, and know you're going to be okay. If you don't, you won't survive. And I was at that point, and I've been a Christian my whole life, or at least I thought I was. But I realized I'm either going to fall to pieces, or I've got to just believe it will work. And so help me, it seems like every prayer in the last year, we have made something we didn't pray for, but we didn't know they're out there have come. But all of a sudden, just relax. You still got to work for it. I don't think you go sit down somewhere and it's all going to come to you.